Well guys, welcome back to the shop. I'm Chris with M7 Metalworks. We're back on the Oliver 550 today. I'm pumped, I'm excited. I want to get some stuff done, some progress. I think we'll start with the alternator and the power steering pump, and we'll just continue on from there, putting this thing back together. It is a brisk day. It's a Thursday morning. I got wood in the stove, and I've got some paint over there warming up because there's just a few little miscellaneous parts that I need to get a little bit of paint on. So. Looks like it goes on like that. There's just a little shade difference in some of the colors. Using two different that needs to be snugged up. Let me grab a wrench and I'll snug these bolts up. The way I've done this, let me show you this real quick. So this bracket here, this is a stock part on the tractor. It's what the generator mounted to. I have cut it down. It was actually this part here, the whole cast piece, this is the cast iron piece. This cast piece was probably about out to here in its length. It went on out here, and then the bolt would have started right here and screwed in. What I did is I cut it down by about, I'll say, just a little under an inch, maybe 7/8 of an inch. And then because the threading only went so deep, you know, keep in mind the cast piece was this long and the threading went down to about here. Well, that's quite a bit of threading. Well, I needed more than that now that I'd cut it down. I wanted it to, you know, thread back in here somewhere. So what I did is I drilled that and then I tapped it, okay? And so that way I could get my bolt in there just a little bit more and have a little bit more secure bolt. So now the alternator bolts onto this, which is nice because it keeps it, you know, it looks like it came from the factory that way in a lot of ways. Part of my alternator, this is a mini alternator that I got from Brillman. I'm sure it's not any different than any other mini alternator out there. Looks to be about the exact same thing you'd get anywhere else. I suspect it's Chinese. It doesn't say USA on here anywhere. And if it were USA made, it'd be advertised on this. So what I'll do is I'll snug this bolt up. Not super tight, because obviously I still got the adjustment rod I got to put it on. You can see it lines up really well. I mean, my rod and my adjustment rod, almost without moving, is perfect. So we'll put that in right there. Then we'll put a larger washer, a lock washer, and then our nut. So the reason I went with this setup is it's super clean. I mean, this is so much cleaner than it would have been, you know, using a generator, and then the regulator would have bolted right back in here. And it's quite a bit of stuff eliminated from this setup just by doing what I did right there. Sliding our belt on here loosely. Give you a little bit of a look at there we go, at the alignment. You see the alignment here. See if I can get you guys lined up in the camera's view real well. So it lines up really well with the alternator, and it gives me plenty, I don't know how well you can see, but I've got adjustment from, I mean, quite a bit of adjustment here that I can still put tension on that belt, which I've got about, that's about what we would want. So quite a bit of adjustment here in the front still with our pulley, our belt. So you see the power steering pump here and how it adjusts. So pretty neat. And I've got it adjusted to where I think it's snug, needs to be. Same with the alternator. I've got it snugged up and it's real solid in there as well. Again, it's hard to show you that bracket. Let's drop down a little bit. So this bracket right there is the one that I modified from the original generator bracket. And you can see everything just lines up beautifully. So nothing's touching, nothing's rubbing. Hard to show all that on the camera, but now I put a little glove right there. This here pivots. You don't know how that works on an Oliver. That pivot's got a little rubber grommet there just to prevent vibration, but that pivots, being that this has got some weight on it, the power steering pump reservoir, causing that side to kind of drop just a little bit. So just to keep this up off of the power steering pump, I stuffed that in there. Back at it here. Had a little disruption from the UPS guy. Can't believe I could get parts that quick. Ordered from McMaster Car and ordered in the evening on Tuesday night, and they processed that order and had it to me Thursday at noon. So pretty amazing. I did have to put this in the vise, in a big vise that I have, and squeeze these U-bolts down a little bit. They just would not go in here easily enough. The manual says 18 3/16 inch from the center of the hole on your stay rods. So that's where I've made my mark. It says that the front of this would come to that mark. So that would be, for me, about right there. And then this part here is to be vertical. And the other side, on the other side of the tractor, is supposed to be 15 with a 15-degree offset. And the reason for the 15-degree offset is the starter, so that it doesn't interrupt and hit the starter. Though, to be honest with you, I don't see how that can happen. So I'll show you the other one in a minute. So again, part of the process of restoring is going to be coming back around and touching everything up. So it's just part of it, unfortunately. So now let's get the cylinders, and let's put the cylinders in here, and let's see how that goes. Okay, well, we've got the lines connected here. So the lower line goes to the inside. The upper line goes to the outside. It states that in the manual, in the service manual. Now these hydraulic lines I had made up at our local hydraulic shop, bearing shop, and you know, I had to do a couple different things fitting wise, so not quite as clean as the originals, but they needed to be changed out, so this is what I went with. I did clear coat these. There's just a, you know, it puts a faint kind of a milky white that clear coat does, which is fine. I went ahead and clear coated the lines that, the hydraulic lines that feed these cylinders. So I've got those drying right now, so just got the lines stuck here. I did use, and I'm just trying to catch up on a few things I did off camera. So I did on these little things, they have like little rubber deals, and they kind of crimp the tubes here. Well, my rubber inside there is gone a little bit, so I had a little loop, like a little rubber loop, and I just punched a hole in it with a leather punch and run it through this screw, and so it actually grips both sides and kind of holds that in there, just so that if that were to try to squeeze out, it can't really do that with the plastic on there, or the rubber on there. So anyways, and then I think now what I'll do is I'll take these, go ahead and pull those off. So that's the old one, that's the new one. I couldn't find any you know, none of the usual customers, the usual culprits, I guess, Corvez and Steiner, and some of the guys that I really like and use a lot. They didn't have these. At least they don't list it on their website. But I just, you know, took some measurements of this one, and I got these from McMaster Car. I think it was $10 or just slightly under for a pack of 25. And there are actually several places on the tractor that it uses this size. There's a couple right underneath the panel that goes underneath there, and then a few on the sheet metal in different areas. So I'm going to put one here and then one right there. Well, now that the paint has dried on these cylinder tubes, so this is for the left side of the tractor, and this is for the right side. Now you might be looking at these saying, wait a minute, the paint dried? There's paint on those? Well, there is. I just took some Scotch-Brite and I cleaned them up, and that got the old paint that was on it, which had green paint on it, and you know, gets it down to kind of a copper silvery finish, kind of depending on the angle that you look at it. And I think these are steel tubes, but I think they were copper coated or something. But anyways, maybe they're copper tubes, and yeah, they're probably copper tubes and coated with a little bit of chrome or silver or something. Anyways, I went ahead and cleaned them up, and then I've just clear coated them. So that's all I've done here, is just clear coated those, just for protection. That's the only purpose in it. I wanted to protect it, and I like the look of the steel or the copper. You know, I did the same thing with these here. For some reason, these came out a little milkier. Maybe it's because I put the stuff on a little heavier on those, because I did definitely thin it out a little bit here, and the clear coat was a little thicker on those. So I think maybe that's why. Anyways, these tubes, let's get these put on and get them connected to our soft lines. Ultimately, these get clamped with a hose clamp, right like that. So the way these work is these don't move, these are screwed in. This is the part that moves, so these stay stationary. Lower one, follow it down. It goes to the inside, so it's lower, and it goes here, and then the upper one goes here. I really wish I'd gotten these things cut shorter. I got them cut just to stock length, but honestly, they'd have been probably a little bit better if they were just a little bit shorter, because those cylinders, they're never gonna change in length. So, but too late now. Try to get this started by hand. And then from here, I'll I'll snug it up. That's how the stock ones were, believe it or not. I'm not particularly fond of the way that's done, but that is the way the other ones are done as well. So, all right, let's go to the other side. I'll figure out what I'm gonna do to band these against the cylinder and secure them there. So I thought I'd show this real quick. So this is a 7/16 crow's foot, and a lot of guys always wonder what you're going to use a crow's foot for. A lot of times you do use them on these hydraulic lines, so very difficult to get to this one here. And so I can get the crow's foot in there, and I can actually tighten it up. Hard to do, obviously, with one hand, but you see how that works. So I'm gonna put the phone down and finish the job here. But without this crow's foot, this gets a lot harder to do. So just thought that was worth sharing. I think I'll run this one first. I think I'll run this one. Actually, I think to get them in there, I think I have to run the high pressure hose in there first. There's just not enough space for this fitting right here if I have the other one in there as well. We'll run this right along the top of that line. Again, my wiring harness will also run this same route. So with everything running along the same route, that should actually be help. It'll give it a much cleaner, neater appearance, and you know, that actually matters to me on something like this. So you can see that's quite a bit more streamlined. It's not sticking out here in the tractor or from the tractor, you know, looking to maybe get snagged on something or whatever. It's less stuff out here. So now I need to figure out how I want to run this. I've got a tube right here that I need to hook up, and I might be able to run it in front of the pump. Let me just take a look at that. Well, I do think I had this inside. I do think it's actually just a little bit easier and puts less tension on the line by just running it right here. And so I think that's the reason they had that originally set up like that. And our lines should be in good shape. All right, guys, so now you can see how that attaches. And yes, I didn't clean this up very well. I had this whole section taped off real good. I just didn't want any sand or debris getting in those ports. And so I taped them up real good, and I didn't clean those areas. So, but they'll be covered up, so I'm not overly concerned. I just want to show you the routing here of the hosing. So underneath the battery tray, I went ahead and routed it behind the distributor. It shouldn't, there's some space back here, so it shouldn't be an issue. It shouldn't be a problem. And then I routed it in front of the bracket so that it can't get into the belt. And then right here in front of this bracket as well, in front of the power steering bracket. So that's kind of how that's done. And I think it gives it a lot neater, cleaner look than what it had previously, where those lines just run right outside, on the outside of these items here, all the distributor and the oil filter and the breather tube there. So I just think that's a lot cleaner and neater. I'll also, of course, run my electrical through that same channel, which is supposed to be, you can see here's a clip for the electrical. And so I'll utilize all those things. So now what I think I'll do is I think I'll go ahead and put this in. I've got a grommet here that'll go in there, and that'll protect my wire loom. So let's put that back in. Guess this is where your fine ratcheting wrenches come in handy when you don't have a lot of throw.